So what were the experiences that made me the musician that I am today? My name is Vincent Turner. I'm an indie rock singer-songwriter from the southeast of England, and today I want to share with you the history of Vince. The bands, the events, the experiences that made me the person and the musician that I am today. I got into guitar fairly late. I was about 16, 17 years old when I finally decided to pick up a guitar and learn to play it. I was really into the game Guitar Hero, as well as this film named Scott Pilgrim vs. the World. I kind of got sucked into that rock and roll world and maybe did want to enjoy some of that lifestyle. But I think what really kept me playing guitar, because learning any instrument is difficult, I think what kept me going was a desire to learn the craft of songwriting and a kind of catharsis that writing songs gave me. As I was dealing with feelings of loneliness, alienation, and just not fitting in, as well as those questions about where my life was heading and what I was going to do with it, I think writing lyrics especially and coming up with songs helped me get through a lot of questions and helped me explore a lot of those feelings. My first local band was named It Was Written in the Sand, and very quickly I had some creative input suggesting that the band drop "it was" from the name, and we proceeded to go on as Written in the Sand. Now, this early band isn't worth spending much time talking about. What I will say is we shared a practice space with another band named Liquid Chaos, and with both bands kind of going through lineup changes, the guitarist of Liquid Chaos asked myself and the drummer of Written in the Sand if we would like to join Liquid Chaos. I was playing bass, and so I played bass in Liquid Chaos. Interestingly, the drummer became the rhythm guitarist. And looking back, I mean, he even said it explicitly at the time. I don't think this drummer really wanted to be a drummer. He'd learned guitar first. I think he always wanted to be a guitarist. I believe even now he does like covers and stuff online of like metalcore songs and metal songs and things like that. I think he always wanted to be a guitarist, and maybe playing drums was just a way in for him to meet other musicians. So I was in this band, Liquid Chaos, and I think the big takeaway, the lesson that I learned from Liquid Chaos was, if I'm going to be in a band, I need to have creative input. This band was very much the guitarist's band. It was quite funny with him because he looked a bit like Axl Rose, but he played guitar a lot like Slash. Guns N' Roses were a big thing for him. The drummer they had in Liquid Chaos was also very into Avenged Sevenfold, and so it's interesting. The band had this interesting, kind of like, imagine like Guns N' Roses riffs and stuff like that, but with the kind of sound and the attitude of Avenged Sevenfold, if that makes sense. And we were kind of straddling this line between rock and metal. Although saying that, I mean, you know, is it in some kind of monster, the Metallica documentary where Lars Ulrich would be like, that sounds kind of stock. A lot of Liquid Chaos's riffs were kind of stock. They were fairly generic. When you're in basically your first band, it is just fun playing music. But ultimately, I didn't align very well with Liquid Chaos. I do like the band Guns N' Roses. Broadly, the musical influences weren't really a problem. Probably to this day, I would still argue I got kicked out of that band because I wasn't a yes man. And like I said, I think ultimately it was a good thing anyway, because I needed to be in a project where I could have more of a creative input. When I did get kicked out of Liquid Chaos, I was still in contact with the guitarist from Written in the Sand, and we very quickly decided that we would bring back Written in the Sand. In fact, we basically created this whole new band just using the same name. Brandon, his name is, the guitarist of Written in the Sand. Very into heavy metal music. Slayer, Gojira, Trivium are a band that he's into quite a lot. For those of you who know me from my Instagram and TikTok, you're probably just like, wait, what? We'll see where this is going. I do like Black Sabbath a lot. I like a lot of the 80s metal, so Iron Maiden. I do like Metallica quite a lot. I guess there was enough of an overlap. And I remember I was at this local band's gig, and they'd seen me before playing Liquid Chaos. They were quite shocked to hear that I'd been kicked out. And one of them recommended me this guy, Glenn. He had recently had, I think, like a skateboarding accident or something, but he was now ready to get back into playing drums. And so the three of us got together, we got on well enough, and we started booking a rehearsal room and jamming our instruments together. I remember the first time we met up, we kind of made a loud racket, and we ended up with this riff that was very akin to something that like old school Black Sabbath would have come out with. It was quite slow, it was quite doomy, hitting a lot of those minor chord kind of, minor scale kind of notes, like that minor third, down, down, and I think sort of like that early period of that band was kind of shaped by Black Sabbath quite a lot, which went really well. I played bass and I sang in that band, and we did our thing for a while, although it took ages for us to actually get any local gigs. A big development happened a couple of years later when the guitarist, Brandon, so we were a three-piece, right? And I actually really enjoyed us being a three-piece. One thing I'll quickly throw in, before I go on, is I do like the band Metallica, and Cliff Burton was a big influence on my bass playing. I was nowhere near as good. Few people are as good as Cliff Burton. But I had a distortion pedal and I had a wah, and I kept trying to find excuses to use them. But Brandon was very much of the opinion that we needed two guitarists to fill out the sound. And he ended up inviting this other guy, I don't know if I should name him or not. He ended up inviting this other guy to join the band without consulting anyone, but the drummer was down with it, so I kind of got outvoted in that regard. And honestly, this guy came in, upstart was the word my mum used. He very quickly started throwing his weight around. I know there's a bias now in what I'm saying, but he was very opinionated, and he kind of overturned the established order very quickly. But looking back, I think maybe what annoyed me most about that period was I was already kind of being sidelined in this band. That creative input that I had right at the start of the band was slowly diminishing. The drummer was very much always looking to the guitarist for new riffs and new ideas, and I got less and less of a look in as time went on, even before this other guitarist came in. Then this other guitarist would basically overhaul the entire way that we worked, and everyone else in the band was fine with it except me. And also, it just seemed to be this thing that there seemed to be this connection with this new member that I just never managed to build up. Looking back at the time, my self-esteem wasn't in a great place, and so this series of events really did not help the way that I felt about myself. Things developed. The new guitarist would repeatedly say that I needed to get singing lessons, even to an extent saying they would vote to get me kicked out if I didn't. The amazing irony here is this new guitarist's favourite band, a band that he would rave on about all the time, was Megadeth. And if anyone's heard Megadeth, right, Dave Mustaine has clearly never taken a singing lesson in his life. And the vocals are not the reason that you listen to Megadeth. I'm not huge on Megadeth. I will say the song Holy War's the Punishment Due is one of the all-time greatest heavy metal songs. But aside from that, never got into them. But it didn't take long for me to see where I stood with Written in the Sand. And it's a pity because I was the guy that made this thing happen. I was the guy, Glenn, the drummer, was recommended to me. I was the guy that initiated Glenn and Brandon meeting. We started the band as a three-piece. I had a big stake in it. I was a big part of the band's creative vision. And for whatever reason, that got sidelined over time, and ultimately it was clear that I was rejected. I left before I was pushed, but thankfully, by this point, I'd already met Grant. Grant was the singer of a band named The Alamo. I say it as if it was already an established thing. Okay, so someone I knew from school, basically, told me about his friend Grant, said that he's a really good singer and he's looking to put a band together. So I met up with Grant. We met at like our local Weatherspoons and we were talking. One thing I remember about the first time we met is we were kind of like, you know that thing when you meet someone from the first time and you're a little bit careful about how you speak about things? And then I kind of let slip, like, if the opportunity ever came up to play like the O2 and play these big festivals and stuff, like I would. And Grant was just like, I'm right there with you. If we can go all the way. And we just had this great, like, you know, like the sort of pipe dream thing. It was like, yeah, we're not pussying about here. Like, we want to do this. We have the same ridiculous Delulu ambition, you know? Like, and I think that really helped us kind of bond. Grant was much more into rock music. I remember like AC/DC and Guns N' Roses were very big for him. I remember joking to someone, The Alamo was kind of the band that I think Liquid Chaos should have sounded like. But Grant himself, his voice was very similar to Bryan Adams. I like a lot of big 80s arena rock. So I think you can straight away tell that this was a much better match for me. This combination, like this was my person. I was going to say these were my people, but this was my person, I suppose. And definitely, like, spoiler, things didn't work out in the end, but The Alamo was the band that I was probably the happiest in. That lineup, for the most part, clicked. And definitely with Grant, like, I had a genuine friend as well as a bandmate, which is something I think I'd been looking for ever since I first started playing music. We played as a duo for quite a long time. And then I was playing guitar also in this band. Yes! Lead guitar! I remember we were jamming this song that he wrote called Break Down the Wall. And initially I was going to play bass. And then one day we were jamming and I just started playing this lead part on my acoustic guitar. And Grant was like, that's really cool. Do you want to play guitar in the band instead? And I'm just like, okay, great. Because he was just like, we can find a bass player, we can find a drummer, and my best friend, and best friend still to this day, plays bass, right? He doesn't pursue music now, but it was like, hey, do you want to play bass in the Alamo? And it's not 100% his music, but he got on with Grant really well. Obviously, he gets on with me. I think it was enough of a vibe, and obviously just playing music is fun. And then we filled out the lineup with a drummer. With the Alamo, what I was just thinking about was Liquid Chaos was my first taste of really playing pub gigs and getting out there, if you like. Written in the Sand was something that I really passionately pushed. And looking back, like, it feels like a bit of a missed opportunity, but like I said, they weren't my people. If they had been, I think things could have gone a lot further, even as the three-piece. But circumstances happened the way they happened. I was now in the Alamo. I was a lot happier. There was 4 of us. We were this tight-knit group. We got on really well. One funny thing, Grant was the only one that could drive, so he'd literally pick all of us up, and then we'd like be in the car together, going to band practice. And it was just things like that that kind of added to the camaraderie and the enjoyment of being in the band. We were writing this kick-ass rock music. Bit of an 80s vibe to it, a bit of a modern vibe. I think we joked that we were like Foo Fighters meets Bryan Adams. We had a pretty cool thing going on. We have got some songs that are on Spotify if you would like to listen to them. After things fell apart with that band, I remember my friend, the bass player, saying to me, like, he feels like the 3 of them are a bit dismayed by the EP not really doing anything. Like, you know, it sort of, we released it, it was on Spotify, it didn't really get any playlists or streams or anything. Now, I think I kind of recognise that, no, the important thing is the music is there. And now when we gig and when we post on social media and when we do all the stuff that you do when you're in a band, the product is there and people can just seek it out. So I just knew that it was the beginning of the journey. Fans of me might hear this is terminology that I use quite a lot when I talk about my own music. I think the Alamo really helped define who I am. Grant, definitely at that point where I was, like I said, low self-esteem, kind of still finding myself. Grant was a role model. I think a role model, not to get too deep, like a male role model that I didn't really have in my life. I think being friends with Grant helped me kind of... Grant was one of these like naturally likable people. At the time, I think I was trying to learn a bit more about like charisma and interacting with people, like just as sad as it sounds, like learning good social skills. And I'm not saying all of that was down to the Alamo, but definitely I think the Alamo happened at a time, especially the later years of the Alamo happened at a time, you know, especially around the pandemic as well, watching a lot of self-help videos. I managed to change jobs not long after the pandemic, well, a couple of years after the pandemic. That kind of period of time, I sort of view it as like before was who I was and after is who I am. I think that period of time with the Alamo, with the pandemic, with me sort of changing jobs, is kind of 2019 to 2022 sort of period. I think did a lot to make me the man I am. And Grant was a part of that. Grant's influence as a man, as a person, as a singer and a songwriter, as a musician, the way he interacted, you know, even as a duo when we play open mics or we play gigs, watching the sort of seamless way that Grant was able to strike up conversations with people and stuff. I think it taught me a lot. I think it really helped me become a better person. Things went downhill with that band. There was an altercation at one of the band practices. It turns out there'd been some tension growing between myself and the drummer of the band. Things got a bit ugly. And unfortunately, the band never really recovered after that. We took a couple of months off. This happened to be at the end of... Was it the end of 2021? It was the end of a year. Grant kind of said, oh, we'll get back together in the new year, which didn't really manifest. And that was just kind of the end of that. Now, I must admit, and maybe this didn't help things, but I'd already recorded an EP named The Voice of Reason. Now I kind of look back on it like a demo. It feels like a demo album. But it's technically the first thing I put out under my own name. I don't know if that contributed to like driving a wedge between me and my ex-bandmates. I hope it didn't. No one ever came across like they thought, you know, like not jealousy or anything like that, but that I was more interested in doing this other thing. I think my commitment to the Alamo was quite clear. But when the Alamo disbanded, not long after, I wrote the song The Writing on the Wall. Whether those two things are related, I will let you speculate. And Writing on the Wall definitely was that song where I feel like I'd found my sound. Like, I feel like this is the direction that I need to go in. Voice of Reason was a lot more rock influenced. One or two of those songs I think would have worked well as Alamo songs. Whereas I think with Writing on the Wall, I carved out my identity as a musician. And then I was able to move forward from there. And in a similar thing to the Alamo, like I'm doing my thing, playing acoustic guitar, doing acoustic gigs. A lot of the songs are written on acoustic guitar anyway. It is kind of like the Alamo formed the blueprint that I'm now following. I started posting on Facebook when I was in the Alamo. Now I'm using Instagram and TikTok, and obviously I'm making long form content on YouTube. The imagery, I forgot about that. The hat and the waistcoat came from the Alamo. That was something that came from Grant and I jamming around my house with acoustic guitars. And so it's really interesting to the extent that the Alamo had on me as a musician. And I'm really thankful for that band, especially after what had happened with Written in the Sand. And that stage of my life that made me closer to the person that I am today. And so here I am, playing acoustic gigs. I will put a band together when I find the right people. If there's a negative outcome that has come from my experience, I'm quite wary of who I choose to put my trust in. But I just hope that doing what I'm doing, like, I've already met some amazing people just from playing gigs. And I really hope that over time, as I play more gigs, as I play more, like, the same cities more and more often, hopefully I'll meet some of the same people again, keep talking, engaging with people on social media more and more. Hopefully those people that like what I'm doing and want to get involved, who I also can trust and believe in, hopefully we will come together and I can start building this up bigger and bigger over time. That, I guess, is how I became Vincent Turner. I've since put out 2 more EPs, Silent Size in the Dark, and there is History Book, which you can actually get on CD. There are other videos that talk all about History Book. Here is not the place. But I hope that this video has been interesting for you. I hope it's provided an interesting and valuable insight into what made me who I am today. And I very much hope to see you in another video.